The Vorthan ship drifted slowly through the darkness of space. It was small and sleek, built for exploration, not for war. Its hull was smooth and clean, painted in soft colors that blended with the stars. Inside, everything was quiet and orderly. Captain Ryland sat in the command chair, watching the view screen. He was tall and thin, like all Vorthan, with large dark eyes and smooth gray skin. His people had been exploring the galaxy for 1,000 years. They had never found danger. Their space was safe. Their worlds were calm. War was something that happened to other species. Behind him, scientist Vela worked at her station. She was studying data from a nearby nebula, a beautiful cloud of colors that stretched across the view screen. Her fingers moved slowly over the controls, recording everything. Pilot Torin sat at the front, guiding the ship through the stars. He was young and eager, always hoping to find something new. So far, everything had been routine. Anything interesting, Vela? Rylan asked. Vela shook her head. Just the nebula, Captain. Beautiful, but we have seen 100 like it. Rylan nodded. That was exploration. Hours of nothing, broken by moments of discovery. He did not mind. Peaceful was good. Peaceful meant safe. Then Torin's voice cut through the quiet. Captain, I have something. Rylan leaned forward. What is it? Torin pointed at his screen. A signal. Faint. Very far away. But it is not natural. Vela turned to her own screens, pulling up the data. She studied it for a long moment. Her face showed confusion. This is strange, she said slowly. The signal is coming from a ship. But the size. Captain, this ship is massive. Much larger than anything in our database. Ryland stood and walked to her station. He looked at the readings. Vela was right. The ship was huge. Larger than any vessel the Vorthan had ever recorded. And the technology, Vela continued. I do not recognize it. The power signatures are unlike anything I have seen. This is not from any species we know. Torin spoke again. Captain, the ship is not moving. It is just sitting there, drifting. Ryland thought for a moment. His duty was clear. They were explorers. Finding new things was their purpose. Set a course, he said. We will investigate. It could be a derelict. Ancient technology from a forgotten species. We must document it. Torin nodded and changed course. The small ship turned and headed toward the signal. As they traveled, the signal grew stronger. The ship on their screens became clearer. And with every moment, the Vorthan crew grew more uneasy. The ship was not just large. It was terrifying. It was built for war. That much was obvious. Its shape was aggressive, all sharp angles and heavy armor. Weapons covered its hull, massive guns that could destroy entire cities. The surface was scarred and damaged, marked by battles fought and survived. This was not a peaceful explorer like their ship. This was a killer. Torin's voice was quiet. Captain, what is this? Rylan had no answer. He had never seen anything like it. His people had no weapons like these. They had no need for them. Vela worked at her screens, trying to find information. Suddenly, her screen flashed red. A warning appeared, pulled from the galactic database. She read it aloud, her voice shaking. Class 3 Deathworld vessel detected. Ryland turned to her. What does that mean? What is a Deathworld? Vela read more. Class III Deathworld. Definition: a vessel originating from a planet with extreme environmental conditions, deadly predators, and constant geological instability. Native species adaptation: extreme. Recommended action: avoid contact. Do not approach. The three of them stared at the words. Torin spoke first. Avoid contact? Captain, we are already here. We are approaching right now. Rylan looked back at the view screen. The massive warship filled the image now. It was close. Too close. Its dark hull blocked out the stars behind it. He thought about turning back. About leaving this place and pretending they had never found anything. But it was too late. On the hull of the massive warship, something moved. A tiny figure. A creature in a spacesuit. Walking casually across the surface of the ship as if it were the most normal thing in the world. The figure carried tools. It stopped at a damaged section of the hull and began to work. Making repairs. Alone. In the middle of empty space. Torin pointed. Captain, look. They watched as the small figure worked. It moved slowly, carefully, but with confidence. It was not afraid. It was not hurrying. It was just doing its job. Vela whispered, what kind of creature does that? Walks alone on the outside of a warship. In open space. Rylan had no answer. The warning still flashed on Vela's screen. Avoid contact. Do not approach. But they had already approached. They were already here. And now, something on that ship knew they were watching. The small figure stopped working. It turned its helmet toward the Vorthan ship. Even from this distance, they could feel it looking at them. Then the figure raised one hand. It waved. Rylan felt cold fear run through his body. This creature, this Deathworld being, had noticed them. And it was greeting them like a neighbor. He looked at his crew. They looked back at him, their large eyes wide with fear. "What do we do, Captain?" Vela whispered. Rylan opened his mouth to answer. But before he could speak, a voice filled the ship. It came through the communication system. A voice speaking their language, but with an accent they had never heard. "Hello there. Been a while since we saw anyone out this far. Give us a minute. I'll come say hi properly." The communication ended. The three Vorthan sat frozen, staring at each other. On the hull of the Deathworld vessel, the small figure gathered its tools and walked toward an airlock. Disappearing inside. Coming to meet them. Rylan looked at the warning on Vela's screen one last time. Avoid contact. Do not approach. It was too late for that now. The Vorthan ship was silent except for the soft hum of its engines. Captain Rylan stood frozen, staring at the warning on the screen. Beside him, Scientist Vela and Pilot Torin did the same. None of them spoke. The words glowed red. Class 3 Deathworld vessel detected. Rylan had never seen this classification before. In all his years of exploration, he had never encountered anything marked as dangerous. The galaxy was peaceful. Their space was safe. Words like Deathworld did not exist in his experience. "Vela," he said quietly. "Access the database. Find out what this means." Vela nodded and turned to her station. Her fingers moved over the controls, pulling up information from the galactic records. It took a moment. Then the data appeared. She began to read aloud. Class III Deathworld. Definition: a planet with extreme environmental conditions, deadly predators, and constant geological instability. She paused, her voice catching. Survival rate for off-world visitors, unknown. Rylan frowned. Unknown? What does that mean? Vela continued reading. It means no one knows how many visitors survive because almost none return to report. Torin spoke from the front. What kind of planet has deadly predators? And constant instability? How does anything live there? Vela scrolled further. The entry explains. These planets are rare. Very rare. Most species cannot evolve on them. The conditions are too harsh. The predators too dangerous. Only the strongest, most adaptable creatures can survive. She found more information. There is a species listed. From a Deathworld called Earth. Rylan moved closer. Read it. Vela read. Species, humans. Homeworld, Earth. Classification, Class III Deathworld native. Creatures on this planet evolved to kill. Every animal, every plant, every environment on Earth is dangerous. The humans adapted. They became the apex predators. They hunt creatures larger and stronger than themselves. They survive extremes of heat and cold. They thrive in conditions that would kill most species. She paused, her eyes widening. They are dangerous. Avoid contact. The three of them sat in silence, processing the words. Apex predators. From a world where everything wanted to kill them. And they had survived. They had thrived. And now one of their ships was right in front of them. Rylan looked at the view screen. The massive warship filled the image. Its scarred hull, its massive weapons, its dark and threatening shape. Look at that ship, he said quietly. They built that. They go into space. They explore. Just like us. Torin shook his head. Not just like us, Captain. We have never built anything like that. That is a warship. Built for fighting. Built for killing. Vela read more from the database. It says here that humans have a history of conflict. They fought each other for thousands of years. Wars. Battles. Millions died. Rylan stared at her. They fought each other? Their own species? Yes. Constantly. For the entire history of their species. They only stopped recently, and even now, there is still tension. Torin spoke again. How did they survive? Fighting each other and fighting a Deathworld. How are they still alive? Vela scrolled through the data. The entry says, humans are adaptable. They learn quickly. They solve problems. And when pushed, they become extremely dangerous. It says here, do not threaten humans. They do not forget. They do not forgive. And they will do whatever it takes to protect themselves and their own. The silence returned. Rylan looked back at the warship. It hung in space like a sleeping beast. Motionless. Silent. But full of potential violence. Maybe it is abandoned, he said slowly. Maybe the crew is gone. It looks damaged. Perhaps they all died. Hope flickered in Torin's eyes. You think so, Captain? Rylan nodded. It is possible. We should check. If it is abandoned, we can document it and leave. No contact. No danger. Vela was about to agree when Torin suddenly pointed at the view screen. Captain, look. Rylan turned. His blood went cold. On the hull of the massive warship, something moved. A tiny figure. Small against the enormous vessel. But clearly visible. It was a creature in a spacesuit. Walking across the surface of the ship. Slowly. Casually. As if it were taking a stroll in a park. It carried tools in its hands. It stopped at a damaged section of the hull and began to work. Making repairs. Alone. In the middle of empty space. With no ship nearby. No safety line. Nothing but the suit between it and death. The creature worked calmly, methodically. It did not look afraid. It did not look hurried. It looked like this was normal. Ordinary. Just another day at work. Vela whispered, "That is a human." Torin's voice shook. It is walking in open space. No protection except that suit. If anything goes wrong, if that suit fails, it dies instantly. And it does not seem to care. Rylan could not speak. He simply watched. The human worked for several minutes, repairing the damage. Then it stopped. It gathered its tools. And then, slowly, it turned its helmet toward the Vorthan ship. Even from this distance, even through the darkness of space, they could feel it looking at them. The human raised one hand. It waved. A simple gesture. Friendly. Casual. As if greeting a neighbor. Torin grabbed the edges of his chair. It sees us. It knows we are here. Vela covered her mouth with her hand. What do we do, Captain? Rylan had no answer. He was frozen, staring at the tiny figure on the hull of the Deathworld vessel. The creature that had just waved at them like they were old friends. The human gathered its tools and walked toward an airlock. It disappeared inside. A moment later, a voice filled the Vorthan ship. It came through the communication system, speaking their language, but with an accent they had never heard. Hello there. Been a while since we saw anyone out this far. Give us a minute. I'll come say hi properly. The communication ended. The three Vorthan sat in stunned silence, staring at each other. On the screen, the warning still glowed red. Avoid contact. Do not approach. It was too late for that now. The inside of the human ship was nothing like the Vorthan had expected. Captain Rylan, Scientist Vela, and Pilot Torin stood in the airlock of their own ship, staring through the small window at the massive vessel before them. They had received the invitation. The human had asked them to come over. And somehow, none of them had been able to say no. Now they waited, hearts racing, as the human ship's airlock opened. A figure appeared. The same human they had seen walking on the hull. Up close, she looked even more ordinary. Medium height. Short dark hair. A calm, friendly face. She wore a simple jumpsuit, nothing special. She smiled at them through the window and gestured for them to enter. Rylan took a deep breath. Remember, he whispered to his crew. We are explorers. We are here to learn. Stay calm. Vela nodded weakly. Torin said nothing. The airlock cycled open. They stepped inside. The first thing they noticed was the smell. Not bad, just different. Metal and oil and something else they could not identify. Food, maybe. The second thing they noticed was the noise. Their own ship was quiet, peaceful. This ship hummed and rattled and clanked with sounds of life and activity. The human woman approached them. Up close, they could see her more clearly. Soft skin. 2 eyes. No claws. No scales. No natural armor. She looked fragile. Weak. But they remembered the database. Apex Predator. Deathworld native. Do not be fooled by appearances. Welcome aboard, the woman said. Her voice was warm, friendly. I'm Commander Eva Vance. Sorry about the mess. We don't get many visitors. She held out her hand. Rylan stared at it. He did not understand. Eva laughed softly. It's a greeting. From my people. You shake it. Like this. She demonstrated with her other hand. Rylan slowly reached out and touched her hand. It was warm. Soft. Nothing dangerous. Good? Eva said. Now come on in. I'll show you around. She led them through a corridor. The walls were covered with marks and scratches. Signs painted in a language they did not understand. Wires ran along the ceiling, not hidden away like on Vorthan ships. Everything was functional, practical, and a little messy. They passed a room where several humans were exercising, lifting heavy metal objects, running in place, pushing their bodies to extremes. Vela stopped to watch. Why do they do this? She whispered. Eva glanced in. Gotta stay strong. You never know what's out there. Besides, we like it. Feels good to push yourself. Vela looked at the sweating, straining humans. On her world, no one exercised like that. There was no need. Everything was calm. Safe. They continued walking. They passed a kitchen. Real food was being cooked. With fire. Inside a spaceship. Torin's eyes went wide. Is that flame? Eva grinned. How else do we cook? Don't worry, we know what we're doing. Mostly. Torin made a small sound of fear and kept walking. They passed a common area. Humans sat on comfortable furniture, talking and laughing. One held a strange wooden object and was making sounds with it. Music, Eva called it. The sounds were soft and pleasant. One human waved at them. Another smiled. A third offered them food from a bowl. Ryland shook his head politely. He could not imagine eating anything here. Eva led them to a larger room with a viewport. Stars stretched endlessly outside. It was beautiful. She turned to face them. Her expression was still friendly, but more serious now. So, she said, you're from the Vorthan exploration ship. We looked you up in our database. Peaceful species. Advanced technology. Never been in a war. That right? Ryland nodded slowly. Yes. We are explorers. We study the galaxy. We do not fight. Eva nodded. Good. That's good. We've met too many species who want to fight. Vela found her voice. Your database, it says your world is a death world. Everything wants to kill you there. How do you survive? Eva considered the question. She looked out the viewport for a moment before answering. You know, she said quietly, I never thought of it that way. Earth is just home to us. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, things can kill you. But it's also beautiful. Oceans, mountains, forest sunsets. We love our world. We fight to protect it, but we also fight to protect each other. She turned back to them. Growing up on a death world teaches you things. It teaches you that danger is normal. It teaches you to watch, to learn, to adapt. It teaches you that the only way to survive is together. She smiled again. And it teaches you that most things in the universe aren't as scary as they look, including us. Ryland felt something shift inside him. This creature, this apex predator, was not what the database had warned about. She was kind, thoughtful, ordinary. But then he remembered. The database also said humans were unpredictable, that they could switch from friendly to dangerous in seconds, that they had fought wars that killed millions. He could not forget that. Eva seemed to read his thoughts. Her expression softened. You're scared of us, she said gently. I understand. We probably look terrifying in your records. And honestly, we can be terrifying. When we have to be. She stepped closer. But here's the thing. We don't want to be. We don't want to fight. We don't want to conquer. We just want to explore. To learn. To make friends. Same as you. She gestured around the ship. Look at my crew. Look at how they live. Are these the faces of killers? Ryland looked. Through a doorway, he saw humans laughing together. One was showing another something on a screen. Two were sharing food. One was playing that musical instrument, soft sounds filling the air. They looked happy, peaceful, ordinary, just like his own people. Vela spoke quietly. The database says to avoid contact. But we made contact, and nothing bad has happened. Torin nodded slowly. They waved at us. They invited us in. They offered us food. Ryland looked at Eva. She waited patiently, her eyes kind. Finally, he spoke. Commander Vance, if we had come as enemies, what would have happened? Eva's expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. A flicker of something old. Something hard. You didn't, she said simply. That's what matters. She paused. But since you asked, we would have survived. We always do. And we would have protected ourselves. Because that's what Death World creatures do. We fight for our lives. Every day. It's what made us. The hardness faded. The warmth returned. Lucky for both of us, you came as friends. Ryland nodded slowly. He understood now. Humans were dangerous. Yes, but they were also something else. Something the database had forgotten to mention. They were human. And sometimes, that was enough. The tour continued through the human ship. With every step, the Vorthon saw things that shocked them. Nothing was like their own vessel. Their ship was clean and organized. Everything had its place. Surfaces were smooth and spotless. The air was filtered and fresh. It was peaceful and calm. This ship was the opposite. The corridors were narrow and cluttered. Things hung on walls. Things sat on floors. Things were piled in corners. Wires ran everywhere, not hidden away but out in the open, taped down or simply hanging. Marks and scratches covered the walls. Painted symbols and words in the human language were everywhere. It was messy. It was lived in. It was personal. The Vorthon did not know what to think. They passed a room where several humans were exercising. The room was filled with strange equipment. Heavy metal objects with handles. Machines with moving belts. Strange bars and ropes hanging from the ceiling. Humans were using all of it. Some lifted the heavy objects over and over. Some ran on the moving belts, sweating and breathing hard. Some pulled themselves up on the bars, their muscles straining. They pushed themselves to exhaustion. And then they did it again. Vela stopped and stared. She could not understand. Why do they do this? She whispered to Eva. Eva glanced into the room. She smiled. Got to stay strong, she said simply. You never know what's out there. Vela looked at the sweating, struggling humans. On her world, no one exercised like this. There was no need. Everything was safe. Everything was calm. They did not need to be strong. Hey, strength was clearly important. They continued walking. The next room was a kitchen. The smell hit them first. Strong and strange. Cooking food. But it was not just the smell that shocked them. It was the fire. On a flat surface, flames leaped upward. A human stood over them, moving food in a pan. The fire danced and crackled, completely uncontrolled. Torin grabbed Vela's arm. Is that flame? Inside a ship? Eva grinned. How else do we cook? Torin's eyes were wide. But fire is dangerous. What if it spreads? What if it burns the ship? What if dash? Eva laughed softly. Relax. We know what we're doing. We've been cooking with fire for thousands of years. It's fine. She gestured at the kitchen. Besides, food tastes better when it's cooked with real fire. You should try some. Torin shook his head quickly. He could not imagine eating food prepared over open flames inside a metal box floating in space. They moved on. The next stop was a wall covered in images. Hundreds of them. Small flat pictures showing humans in all kinds of places and situations. Vela stepped closer, studying them. Here was a human with two smaller humans, all smiling. Here was a human holding a furry creature with 4 legs. Here were humans standing in front of huge bodies of water. Here were humans on mountains, in forests, in cities, in fields. What are these? Vela asked softly. Eva's voice was gentle when she answered. Memories. Photographs. We like to remember where we came from. Who we love. Where we've been. Vela pointed at one showing a group of humans laughing together at a table full of food. This one. Family dinner, Eva said. My family. My parents. My brothers. My cousins. We used to get together every week. Eat. Talk. Laugh. Argue. Love. Vela felt something stir inside her. Her own people had families too. But they did not carry images of them across the galaxy. They did not need to. Home was always close. For humans, home was far away. But they carried it with them. Captain Ryland had been quiet for a long time, watching and thinking. Now he spoke. Commander Vance, may I ask something? Eva nodded. Of course. Ryland took a breath. This was the question that had been in his mind since they first saw the warning. Your world, it is classified as a death world. Everything there wants to kill you. The environment. The animals. Even the plants. How do you survive? How do you thrive? Eva looked at him thoughtfully. Her expression was calm, but something moved behind her eyes. Come here, she said. I want to show you something. She led them to a large viewing port. Through the thick glass, stars stretched in every direction. Endless. Beautiful. Cold. See all that? Eva said softly. Beautiful, right? The Vorthon nodded. It was beautiful. They had spent their lives exploring such views. But dangerous too, Eva continued. No air, no warmth, no protection. One mistake and you're gone forever. Space doesn't care if you live or die. She turned to look at them. Sound familiar? The Vorthan stared at her, confused. What did space have to do with Earth? Eva smiled at their confusion. You're from a death world, she said quietly. So are we. Ryland shook his head. No. Our world is peaceful. Safe. Nothing tries to kill us. Eva nodded. I know. I meant something else. She gestured at the stars. Think about it. Space is a death world. No air. No warmth. No protection. Everything wants to kill you out here. And yet here you are. Flying through it. Exploring it. Living in it. She paused to let that sink in. You survived space. You adapted. You made it your home. That's what death world creatures do. We take dangerous places and we make them ours. She looked back at the stars. Earth is our death world. And we survived it. We thrived there. We turned it into home. This ship. She tapped the wall beside her. This is just another death world. Cold. Dangerous. Unforgiving. And we're right at home in it. The Vorthan stood in silence, processing her words. Torin spoke first, his voice full of wonder. She's right. We did the same thing. We just never thought of it that way. Vela nodded slowly. Space is a death world. And we live in it. Ryland looked at Eva with new eyes. She was not just a survivor of a dangerous planet. She was something more. She was a creature who had learned, long ago, that danger could be lived with. That fear could be overcome. That anywhere could become home if you were brave enough and smart enough and stubborn enough. Eva smiled at them. So you see, she said gently, we're not so different. You survived your death world. We survived ours. And now here we are, together, in the biggest death world of all. She gestured at the stars. Welcome to space, friends. It's good to have you here. The common area on the human ship was warm and comfortable. Soft lights glowed from the walls. Comfortable chairs were arranged in a circle. A table held bowls of food that smelled strange but not unpleasant. The Vorthan sat carefully, still unsure. Humans sat around them, relaxed and at ease. Some held cups of warm drinks. One still had that musical instrument, resting on their lap. Eva sat across from Captain Rylan. She picked up a bowl and offered it to him. Here, try this. It's called bread. Very simple. Very safe. Rylan hesitated, then took a small piece. He put it in his mouth. It was soft and warm and slightly sweet. Not bad. Good. Eva asked. Rylan nodded slowly. Yes. Good. The humans smiled. The tension in the room eased a little. For the next hour, they talked. The humans asked questions about Vorthan culture. About their world. About their art and music and stories. The Vorthan answered, slowly relaxing as they spoke. Then Eva stood. You've seen our ship, she said. Now let me show you something else. She activated a screen on the wall. Images began to appear. Paintings. Beautiful paintings. Landscapes with mountains and forests and oceans. Cities with lights and towers. People laughing, crying, thinking, loving. Colors and shapes and scenes that told stories without words. This is our art, Eva said softly. We've been making it for thousands of years. Before we had writing. Before we had cities. We made art. The images changed. Now they showed sculptures. Figures carved from stone and wood and metal. Some were realistic. Some were strange. All were beautiful in their own way. Vela leaned forward, fascinated. Why do you make these? Eva smiled. Because we have to. Because something inside us needs to create. Needs to express what we feel. Needs to leave something behind. The images changed again. Now they showed people. Humans helping other humans. A doctor treating a sick child. A firefighter carrying someone from a burning building. Strangers hugging after a disaster. This is us too, Eva said quietly. We fight. Yes. We can be dangerous. But we also help. We also love. We also sacrifice for each other. She looked at the Vorthan. The database told you we are predators. Apex killers from a death world. And that's true. We can be those things. But that's not all we are. She pointed at the screen. We are also this. We are art and music and stories. We are kindness and sacrifice and hope. We are mothers and fathers and children. We are friends. The music started then. Soft and slow. a melody that rose and fell like waves. Words in the human language that the Vorthan could not understand but could feel. Vela felt tears in her eyes. She did not know why. The music simply touched something deep inside her. When it ended, silence filled the room. Captain Ryland spoke finally. His voice was quiet. "We were so afraid of you. The database said avoid contact. Do not approach. We thought you would kill us." Eva shook her head gently. "We don't kill friends." "But you could," Ryland said. "If you wanted to. If we had come as enemies. You could kill us easily." Eva was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Yes. We could. That's the truth. We come from a place where killing or being killed was normal for millions of years. It's in us. Deep down. We can't change that." She leaned forward. "But here's the other truth. We also come from a place where helping each other was the only way to survive. Where love and friendship and sacrifice kept us alive. That's in us too. Just as deep." She looked at each of them. "You get to choose which part of us you see. We get to choose which part we show. Today, we chose to show you friends. And you chose to see friends." Ryland nodded slowly. He understood now. The database was not wrong. It was just incomplete. It told the truth but not the whole truth. Humans were dangerous. But they were also wonderful. Both things were real. Both things mattered. Later, at the airlock, the Vorthan prepared to leave. They had spent hours with the humans. They had eaten their food, seen their art, heard their music, learned their stories. They were not afraid anymore. At the door, Captain Ryland stopped. He turned to Eva. "Commander Vance, may I ask one more question?" "Of course." Ryland hesitated. "Then, if we had come as enemies, if we had attacked, what would have happened?" Eva looked at him. Her face was calm. Her eyes were steady. "You didn't. That's what matters." She paused. "But since you asked, we would have survived. We always do. And we would have protected ourselves. Because that's what Deathworld creatures do. We fight for our lives. Every day. It's what made us." She smiled warmly. "Lucky for both of us, you came as friends." Ryland nodded. He understood. The danger was real. But so was the friendship. Both things could exist together. He extended his hand, the way Eva had shown him. She took it and shook gently. "Safe travels, Captain Ryland." "Safe travels, Commander Vance." The airlock closed. The Vorthan returned to their ship. As they flew away, the human warship grew smaller on their view screen. Inside the Vorthan ship, the crew was quiet for a long time. Finally, Vela spoke. "Captain, what do we tell the Council?" Ryland watched the human ship until it disappeared into the stars. "Tell them the truth. Humans are dangerous. But they are also wonderful. They are both. And we must learn to understand both." Torin spoke quietly. "Will the Council believe us?" Ryland thought about it. About the art and the music and the stories. About the laughter and the kindness and the warmth. About the danger underneath it all. "They will have to," he said. "Because it's the truth. And the galaxy needs to know the truth about humans. All of it." The screen showed the stars rushing past as they headed home. Then the words appeared, simple and clear. The galaxy learned that day that Deathworlds do not just create killers. They create survivors, protectors, dreamers, and sometimes, the best friends you will ever find.